lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and I got another holiday comic to share with you guys. And today I'm going to be talking about the Clerks Holiday Special by Kevin Smith and Jim Mahfood. As I've said before, a huge Kevin Smith fan. I'm sure I've mentioned it on other episodes, probably the podcast. I love all his movies. He's written some of my favorite comic books as well, including his Daredevil run, his Green Arrow run. There's definitely a few of his View Askew related characters, Jay and Silent Bob, comic books that I want to talk about. But today, since it is the holiday season, I thought it'd be a cool time to talk about the holiday special. We got a dope Art Adams cover. I love his rendition of Dante and Randall and Jay and Silent Bob, and the perfect thing to lure you in before you fucking dive into the depravity that is about to take place. So, like I said, Clerks, created by Kevin Smith, books written by Kevin Smith, Jim Mahfood illustrated the book, Sean Cannot on letters, and the cover was colored by Guy Major, art was by Art Adams. This was published in 98. So that means Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy have all been out. So there's going to be some references in this book to some of the stories, but I digress. So what I really love is right off the bat, go right into Comic Toast, which is the comic book store that is in Mallrats, run by Steve Dave and Walt Flanagan. Both of these people are based off of real people in Kevin Smith's lives. I mean, he's mentioned that in countless interviews, but I love right here too. It's really funny because a kid comes in, he asks for loose figures, and he gets pissed off and tells him to get tells him to beat it, and then he goes on to say how there's no new blood coming into comic books, and that like basically once the collector's market goes away, that the comics are going to die. And I think it's kind of interesting because this is published after the 90s speculation market, right? And obviously comics haven't died since then, but we are seeing there's a little bit of similarities to what we're seeing now. And I reading this after all these years again, it's pretty crazy to see how similar things still are. And it's funny too because I work in a comic store, and some of the dialogue, some of it, not all of it, is kind of similar to like conversations you'll hear in a comic book store. And he talks about hiring the worst people to write the worst crap, mentioning a movie boy that's going to write one of their most revered characters. So this is kind of Kevin Smith breaking the fourth wall, because he wrote Daredevil, and I'm sure a lot of people back then. I was younger, so I don't really remember if there was any backlash about it, but And talking about how it's going to bring in new readers, which it turned me on to Daredevil. I don't think I had read Daredevil before that, but Kevin Smith's run is what started my love for the character. So it's kind of funny that they're mentioning that, talking about gimmicks, multiple covers, and he's saying the way of the future is alternate interiors, which I thought was fucking hilarious. Talking about giving his mom stuff that's been in the half off bin for over 3 years. It's just little things like that just really make Kevin Smith's writing stand out, and like in the dialogue just feels natural. That's always been one of his strong suits, is the way he writes his characters feels very real and very natural. So the whole point is like he ran out of tape, and all the stores are closed, so where else are they gonna go but the Quick Stop? And here we see Dante sitting here, obviously hating life as he always does when he's at work. And right here, something I noticed on this read I didn't notice before: Scott Mosier arrested for murder, which is the producer of all of Kevin Smith's films and one of his closest friends. I thought that was pretty funny. Then we got all the different porn titles, and that's something that that you'll notice earlier too, is Jim Mahfood puts titles on all these books, which I think is pretty cool. Badass Mofo, which I'm pretty sure was a call out to David Walker's zine that he used to do. But yeah, so as they're coming into the shop, we meet this priest, and we have this like funny dialogue. He's talking about Regis and Kathy Lee. in his opinion on why Regis and Kathy Lee should be together. And right after he says to embrace the holiday spirit, Dante asks if he wants anything else, and he asks for this fucking porn mag, and I think it's just fucking hilarious. It's such an awkward, like, the look on his face, and his face is just, it's, I mean, this book is such a funny fucking comic. It's definitely not kid friendly, but it is a holiday book, and I had to talk about it since I'm such a huge fan. And as they, the priest leaves and stuff, and Steve, Dave, and Walt come up and they ask for the tape. He tells them the price, and then they get pissed off talking about, oh, how taking advantage of customers who get off late and can't make it to like a better place where they can get stuff cheaper, and then they mark it up, and that's what's wrong with business in America. And then this fucking kid comes in and asks if they work at the comic book store. Do you have that copy of Water Chick with the alternate 18 pages? He's like, yeah, it goes for $30. The guy's like, it just came out last week. You snooze, you lose, dickhead. Like, this shit is still happening in comic books. It's absolutely hilarious. Like, this conversation, I could complete. Like, I've had this conversation with my manager at the shop. Like, talking about, like, dude, like, it looks ridiculous that we're charging for this book that just came out and it's already going for more. But that's what speculators do, and it's one of the things I hate about comics. As we move forward, we get to see Randall, one of my favorite Kevin Smith characters, and his mom's yelling, once again, bringing up Walt Flanagan's dog, which is an ongoing joke in all of the Kevin Smith movies and stuff. And she's pissed because he rented her son this Santa porn, and she was meaning to rent this. The kid wanted to rent the Santa Claus, the Tim Allen movie, and then Randall, with his usual disdain for everything, talks shit about the Tim Allen movie, and then as we go, then we have another customer is in the shop, and Randall gets, and he gets scared shitless by this guy that like came out of nowhere, and this random dude's asking to rent these two tapes, and Randall calls him, he's like, oh, does the wife know you like it filthy? And he says, listen, the wife sent me, and he's like, oh, I need something else, and he asks for some adult films that feature little men. And he's like, oh, what do you mean, midgets? He's like, no, they prefer little people. And then he's like, man, your old lady's got some bizarre taste. And then he said, you should see your mother's wish list. So that's where we get the inkling that this isn't just anybody, but it ends up being Santa. And he tells Randall he made the list. And he's like, and then he figures out, he's like, oh shit, 58A, which is the unit right between the Quick Stop and the RST video shop. So then he's like, he starts tripping out. He starts like wondering like what the hell's going on. He runs into Dante. Dante reminds him of a bet they used to have where he's like, oh, of a Christmas gift he got years ago. And how he made this bet. He's like, oh, I'll also be wearing it 15 years later. It ends up being a Motley Crue jacket. So the whole point of this is like Randall now has to figure out, not only is he wondering what's up with that dude that is basically Santa, but he's also trying to figure out how he's going to get this jacket so he doesn't have to pay Dante the $100. We continue with a lot of dialogue, a lot of hilarious dialogue, but we end up talking about Caitlin, Dante's ex, who boned the dead guy in the bathroom in Clerks, which is why she was in a mental institution. He's going to go visit her. Randall suggests a way to get her out of the catatonic state, which is to perform this fucking sexual act called caning with a candy cane. And he drops Randall off, and Randall's, he's got to figure out how's he going to get this fucking jacket, So Dante leaves for the night. He's going to go see Caitlin. He leaves this weird mop boy in charge of the store. Randall comes across the unit and decides to knock on the door. He's like, I got the porn you were asking for, and an elf answers the door. And then we cut to another scene, which I'll mention real quick because I think it's kind of funny, is that we see William, who's always trying to see the sailboat from Mallrats. So we see him real quick, and then this random dude says like, talks about, can I poop in your mouth? And then we see the nurse says Mr. Shrek. So this dude's in this institution. Mr. Shrek, which would be Bob Shrek, the publisher of Oni, I think, which is really hilarious. And Dante asks what's wrong. He's like, oh, a comic book publisher, late with books and unmet deadlines. That'll do it to you. And jump. So this thing is full of inside jokes, full of humor. Randall figures out that it's Santa. And I won't get too into it, but we meet a Santa that's definitely not your regular Santa. And then as Randall's realizing, who it is, Santa's telling him okay that he, took him off the list. He says, "Oh man, you got a machine that produces all this stuff." He gets some Weebles, and then he's wondering if basically tells him the whole reason he needs a porn is to get the elves motivated, and he calls the elves lazy. And we see that some of the local hires he brought on, which is Jay and Silent Bob. And then, of course, he gets the bright idea to figure out this machine will make the jacket that he needs to not lose the bet. Again, we jump back to Caitlin, and Dante did what Randall suggested, and it wakes Caitlin out of the catatonic state, but she's fucking pissed. Dante fucking leaves. Come back to the quick stop. Christmas morning, and Randall's sitting outside in the snow and gets woken up by Dante. Tries to tell Dante about his experience that he had last night. Then he realizes maybe it might have been a dream. Nobody's living in that unit. But as we see, after Dante and Randall had their conversation, Dante lets him off the hook for the bet. But we do see one thing. We see a Weeble holding a joint that gets thrown to Randall, and Jay's wearing the Motley Crue jacket. Fucking hilarious holiday special, Clerks Holiday Special. And if you haven't had a chance to pick it up, I know they got it in some of the trades. Single issue is not hard to find either, but I highly recommend it for any Kevin Smith fan. Anybody that's a fan of Clerks or any of his work definitely should check this out. And if you're not already following us, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. Throw your comments or suggestions down below, or email us thecomicloungepod@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the like, follow, and subscribe so you're notified every time a new video goes up. And on that note, I'm out.